Want to sharpen your game? Join the DFM Coaching Patreon for exclusive technique breakdowns and mindset training. Now, let's get started.
Welcome to Tapped In. My name is David Figueroa-Martinez of DFM Coaching, and today we're going to be discussing making techniques your own. So this is going to be an interesting concept because we sometimes look at techniques as they need to be done a specific way because it's the way that we were taught by our instructor. Our instructors have, in some cases, decades of experience. Sometimes they have like high-level competition experience, and they might be gearing you towards a certain path or through a certain lens because it makes more sense to them, and which I completely understand. Sometimes their techniques are going to be altered for a host of reasons, some of them specific to your body type, your training partners, the things you're experiencing, your injuries, your temperament. And I know I've covered some of these in the past, but really it's going to be every artist, and I view the students as artists, martial artists, and they're putting together a painting. That painting is going to take a certain level of identity towards you that is going to look different than mine. It's going to look different than your own instructors. It's going to look different than the people you're going to see on TV when they're competing at the highest level. It is going to look different, and that is quite all right. We sometimes look at techniques as having this perfect expression or this perfect structure or identity. This is what a perfect armbar looks like. This is what a perfect triangle looks like. But then you start looking and really paying attention to the different competitors. And even in that realm, you're going to notice that people do things slightly different. You're going to see an armbar, which is slightly different angle. You're going to see an armbar where both legs are over the neck and head area. You're going to see one where one is over the head, one's over the torso. You're going to see some where the ankles are crossed. You're going to see some where they're scissored inside of the arms. You're going to see a whole host of different types of arm bars. You're going to see some that are inside the triangle, some that are you're going to be upside down in the guard. You're going to be kind of spiraling. So there's different nuances to these things. And we have to understand that as coaches and students. We can't sit here and try to look at everything as, oh, this is the perfect version of it. This is the one that everyone has to be doing this way for these reasons. And then you start looking at things and you start realizing my biomechanical, my body, the way I move, the way I don't move, the length of my limbs is all going to dictate how I'm going to do this armbar. And someone who's much taller than me may do an armbar very different than me who's 5'4", me who is 45, me who has certain dexterity ranges that maybe someone else doesn't have. And that's where things get different. I want us to look at the blueprint of what the technique should look like, and then allow ourselves to start making alterations so that they fit us better. An armbar is an armbar. A cell phone is a cell phone. It doesn't matter which version you got. It doesn't matter who makes the cell phone. It doesn't matter if it allows you to do fingerprint versus a facial recognition versus these apps, those apps. It's still a cell phone. It still functions. It still does the things that you want it to do. Still makes calls, texts, plays apps, plays music, watches the video. But you look at cell phones and there's a bunch. Every year there's a different model. There's a very different take that one company takes on another. That's the way we should be looking at the art we're creating and the techniques that we're doing. Seldomly do we look at things as pass. I think we should look at things as pass or no go. Does it work? Yes. Do we understand why it works? Yes. Those are conceptual anchors. Do we understand why it may not work? Yeah, because maybe I'm cutting this angle, and for the average height person, this doesn't work very well. But because I am 6'4", or because I'm 5'4", I can do this a little differently, and it keeps the conceptual anchors of controlling the body, controlling the head, squeezing the knees, controlling how much space there is between people. And it generates a different kind of maybe pull or a different angular pull, but you still get the armbar. I don't want to go with rigid steps. In the beginning, when we're new to this art, we're going to go by very rigid steps. I'm going to tell you, I want you to do this, this, and this. And you're going to mimic me. And you're going to mimic your instructor. You're going to mimic the person you see on TV. But then there's going to be a phase where you then become the artist, and you become the person who's now going to dictate and decide, why am I making these decisions? Why do I have to stay in this specific position? Why can't I maybe grab the leg? And we're speaking armbar specifically because I'm going to get into something in a minute. Maybe I need to maybe I do earthquake on with my thigh over their head and make them like give up the grip. So there's anchors, conceptual anchors that we can't completely get away from. You got to control the head at some point. You got to separate the arms. You have to maintain minimal space between their arm and your body so that they can't rotate it underneath you and get the elbow to the ground. Like, those are conceptual aspects that we cannot ignore. But we don't have to be as rigid with all the other steps, because there's 1,000 ways to end an armbar or any submission. There's hundreds of ways to enter a position. And every time you enter that position, the rigid steps no longer are viable, because I may have entered this armbar from the bottom of half. And when I'm in the bottom of half, that position doesn't necessarily look like traditional armbar anymore. Now it looks like something else. Maybe I'm on my side, but I'm extending the elbow. Maybe I'm not controlling the head as much because I'm spiraling underneath them, so I don't necessarily have to. So there's going to be a lot of steps that we're going to teach you early on, that we want you to understand, that we want you to get comfortable with. But then you're going to get to a point as the artist where you're going to start breaking rules, and you're going to be making your own rule set, because now you're no longer being dictated by the rigidness of it. Because now you can take a little bit of leeway. You can take little shortcuts, because you understand, if I take this shortcut, he's more than likely, or she's more than likely, going to do X, Y, and Z. And when they do that, I have an answer for it. So it's no longer these rigid steps. It's more conceptual, and allows you to just play. It allows you to get into positions that maybe you don't normally get into. The evolution of your technique and the thing that you're doing, you get really good at. And we're all going to have we're all going to become subject matter experts in something. And my job, they call them SMEs. And that's going to come with time, and it's going to come with expertise, and it's going to come with a lot of mistakes. And as you evolve from the armbar that I teach you, which I like, the armbar that we all get taught, then there's an armbar that I teach, or setups and controls that I like to teach. You're then going to take that and you're going to evolve it to something else. And at some point, you would think the evolutionary process just kind of stops. Maybe it circles back. Maybe you find a detail that I didn't. Maybe you find an angle that I never really exhausted. And then you start going down an evolutionary path that's going to look a little different than mine, which looks a little different than a traditional armbar. So I want us to understand that we're going to evolve positions, submissions, and we're going to evolve how we attach them all. And they're going to be uniquely specific to you. They're going to have your fingerprint on them. They're going to have a certain aspect of you, a flair of you, and they're going to have a flair of the people around you. Your gym ecosystem is going to dictate a lot of what you're doing, because you can't find yourself in certain positions unless your training partners are actively pushing you that way. So if you have a room full of competitive belts, they compete a lot, IBJJF, pros, whatever, that ecosystem or that worldview is going to be different than the one that you might see in a gym where they are more hobbyist centered or recreational centered, because they may not be as impacted by the competition scene as you are. Then it's going to look different from a gym that is heavy on self-defense. They're not going to see the same positional aspects as the hobbyist or the professional, because they're centered on something different. They're focusing on something different. And you can say the same the other way around. So the ecosystem that we're in really does dictate a lot of what we're going to do. You might be in a system where you got a lot of 20-something-year-old young men, young women who are eager to roll hard and roll a specific way. That is also going to alter how you process information and the kind of techniques you're going to create. And then you might be in a spot like I am, where, for honestly, like we're all 30, 40, 50 years old. So we train a little different than I was training when I was coming up. And it's just going to feel different. The pacing is going to be a little different. And because the pacing's different, maybe I make decisions that are a little bit more technical, opposed to an environment where maybe we're all playing no-gi and everyone's scrambling. And it's more about getting to the top position or getting to a certain position and then snapping something quickly, opposed to I'm doing gi with 30, 40, and 50-year-olds, and the pace is slower. And I'm more about control. I'm more about slowing things down. I'm more about making you have to think and worry about things more. So all these microclimates that we're finding ourselves in are going to dictate a lot of what we're doing. The people themselves are going to dictate a lot of what we're doing. The way they may process information, the way, like, let's say I'm a short person and I'm in a gym. Most of the people are much taller than me. It's going to force my technique to evolve to deal with those types of people. Same way you see in nature, how you put something in a certain climate, it's going to look different. It's going to act a little different. It's going to have certain features that are a little different than something that's in a much warmer climate or a much colder climate. Same things sort of happen with technique. There's times when I go to another gym and the eyeball test says, oh yeah, we're all semi the same here. But then I get there and I see that, oh, the temperament's a little different here. And because the temperament's a little different, their technique is a little different. Or they might have a different emphasis on how to deal with certain things. And it'll catch me and I'll stop and I'm like, oh, that was different. Okay. And then I force the position back because I want to see what they're doing and why. So the environments that are in are going to dictate, our body types are going to dictate. And at some point, like I mentioned before, you're going to become the artist and you're going to take an ownership of the technique that is going to be different than the ownership that I have. And I actually want that to occur. I want that to occur relatively soon. I don't want you to get to purple belt and start taking ownership. I want you to be around middle, late white belt and start identifying certain things that maybe I do this different because of this. Because I don't want to put you in a box. I don't want to stifle your creativity. I don't want to stifle your ability to make decisions that are good for you, that are going to be different than the decisions that I make. So when I go around the room and I see someone doing something specific, I'm like, so this isn't wrong. I want you to be aware of, and I might list one or two things. And they'll be like, okay, so what should I have been doing? No. The technique is this. You're doing this, which again, my experience tells me it's not wrong. It's just different. And as long as, if this is what you're naturally attracted to, then keep it, but just be aware of this. And then they get to develop the game a little further. I don't want necessarily perfect, quote unquote, arm bars. I don't want perfect triangles. I want triangles that are effective for you and that they'll look different. So as a coach, I'm going to constantly push you. One of the things that for me, I spent, I want to say 4, 5, maybe 6 months doing arm bars from out. And then I picked up the habit again sometime last year. It's one of my favorite submissions. My first submission was probably a rear naked choke. Then I got into Kimuras, and through Kimuras, I got into arm bars. And I have a particular way of going into the arm bar. If I'm in mount, I go Ezekiel choke. They bring the elbow up. I isolate the arm, and I swim into S mount, and I start attacking from there. The problem is that people are really good at defending from the mounted position. So something that I started developing was, okay, so if they're good at defending from the mount, how do I get to the mount with the positions already kind of set in place? So one of the things I started doing was I started playing from side control, but forcing them to turn away from me. So as they turn away from me, I would get the Kimura lock on the top arm, and then I would open up my my right hand. So if their head is on my left, I would open up my right hand, anticipating that their arm would come to me. And I kid you not, 90% of the time it does. It's pretty wild. And then once I grab that, I would let go of the wrist from the Kimura lock and then grab their forearm, tricep, elbow area. And then I would go into mount, but I already have the pieces in place that would allow me to finish the armbar from mount, but initiated from this semi-back exposure position. And I have no idea what that position is called. So I started creating positions or transition that would lead me into the armbar with the grips in place that would not allow them to grip effectively, but would give me supreme control of the arms. It would give me the position I wanted, which was the mount. I get to cook you from there, and eventually you just give me the arm. This isn't something I was ever taught. No one ever went out of their way to say, hey, you can create the armbar experience or episode from this spot. It was just something that I started to learn into because I was doing Kimuras from north-south. So then it turned into, I can do the north-south Kimura, and then if they don't let go of the belt, I could go into Kimura. I can go into the armbar with the Kimura grip and then start isolating. Problem being they still had the belt. So then I was like, so how do I get to this position, get here, and do this? So then I started experimenting with things and I started doing what I just explained. That has given me so many arm bars because you're not in a position to really defend the mounted arm bar because I'm not mounted. And because you're not in a position to equate the position that we're in with the position that I'm going to get to, because it doesn't happen as often from what I'm seeing, I started exploiting that. And then it allowed me to also exploit other guard breaks or other grip breaks. And I just started creating a little system of my own. Again, I don't remember ever being taught this, but this is what happens when you mimic first and then you start making the positions your own. And then you start putting your own spin on it and you start really diving into the creativity of what this art really is, which is you putting your own DNA or spin on the techniques that you love. And I do arm bars different than most people that I'm around, or at least I set them up differently. I don't like arm bars from the bottom. I just don't. I don't like a whole lot. I don't like many submissions from the bottom. So my own interpretation of the techniques is if I'm on bottom, I need to sweep. When I get to top that's when I can really attack. That's where I really want to demonstrate my prowess and my skill in hunting for the thing that I want and then punishing along the way to finally give it to me. We're all going to do this differently. I want us to continue to take ownership over the techniques that we like, ownership over the variations that we're creating, flesh them out, try them on as many different people as possible. Let the failure guide where your technique should go. Figure out every time when you missed a position, why did you miss it? Was it your balance? Was it your positioning? Did you give too much space? Were they technically better than you, but you're on the right track? Review all these things. But I want you guys to take these techniques, make them your own, because they genuinely, at the end of the day, they will become your own. You're going to become a subject matter expert, and you're going to become the artist that paints this specific picture that will be different than your own instructor, which is going to be different than their instructor. Don't get put into a little box. You're better than that. I'm hoping this helps. If you have any questions on this or anything else jiu-jitsu related, please let me know. Also, I have a Patreon page with a full library that continues to grow, exclusive episodes of this. I take questions from students and I make episodes for the Patreon page. So that's been kind of fun to do. I have, I think, 2 or 3 up already. I have another 2 or 3 scheduled to be up. We also have direct coaching if you want to do that. That's been a lot of fun, really. Until next time, thank you so much.